very ugly. But I just want to go ahead and go back to talking Dak Prescott. Like I mentioned earlier, that was just heartbreaking to see the way that he went down. No athlete, no fan, nobody, regardless if it's, your opponents or a team that you don't like, you don't want to see any athlete go down the way that he did. Seeing him, we had both coaches. One was his current coach, one was the prior coach, both going and seeing that he was okay. Unfortunately, he's not okay. He has a fracture and a dislocated ankle. You can just see the heartbreak from Dak. Seeing him in tears, he knew how bad that was. That was probably the end of the season for him. So, and just seeing how his teammates respect him, and not only his teammates but other athletes, we saw that and on social media, how respected he is, a leader, and it's a huge loss for the team. And it's just a huge loss for the team. I just don't have any more words to just explain how horrific this is and how bad I feel.
Yeah, and then Dallas is the last thing they needed. They have 10 other players on the injury reserve list. Like this year, this is especially such a big key in their organization. And like you said, it was such a horrible injury that nobody wishes that upon anybody, and you don't want to see that. And, as an athlete, you feel the pain. You feel the pain. It's like, ouch, and just, best wishes to him. It is season-ending injury. But if you look at it, this season is not the worst to sit out. Now the NFL is with all these protocols, like with COVID. Now they're saying, I got a message earlier this day that now they're going to be tested the day of the games because so many are getting infected. So maybe if you are not in your best health, it is best if you sit out this season and come back next season. But he will be a free agent next season, I believe, for 2021.
Yeah, because he signed that franchise tag, so he pretty much bet on himself this year that he was going to have that kind of season. And hopefully, I don't think from what Stephen Jones with the Cowboys and what Jerry Jones said, they still have plans for Dak Prescott in the future with the Dallas Cowboys. He couldn't avoid this injury. Obviously, it's part of playing football. It's part of being a professional athlete. Injuries occur. Joe Theismann tweeted out, he tweeted out his sympathies for Dak Prescott, and Carson Wentz tweeted out Patrick Mahomes, Mark Cuban. It sent a ripple effect when that injury came up and everybody saw what happened to Dak Prescott. Doesn't matter if he was the quarterback for the Cowboys or if he was the New York Jets quarterback. The fact that this was such a horrific injury to such a talented young man, it sent ripple effects throughout not just football, but the entire sports landscape as a whole. That Dak Prescott suffered such a horrific injury, but that young man will be back. They said it will be a 4 to 6 month recovery. So let's just hope and pray that he comes back and he's just as effective when he comes back for the Dallas Cowboys as he was before the injury.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's hope it really doesn't affect him. Something like that can be, especially, in your ankle. But now, hopefully, with all the technology and the rehab and all that, it's definitely, but you do receive a lot of hard hits in football, a lot of hard hits. And like you said, when Alex Smith came back, they did not take it easy on him. It's like, you're back on the field, you're back. We don't care if you've had 17 surgeries or 20 surgeries. We're going to hit you just as hard as the next guy next to you.
Definitely. So, I'm wishing him the best and a speedy recovery and that he gets better. Hopefully this goes well for him as he becomes a free agent and going into 2021 season, and that this doesn't have a huge impact for him as he goes on to his 2021 season. COVID outbreaks. We're seeing those happen in the NFL. You mentioned it, Aileen. And is this just the start of what's to come for MLB? For NFL, as we saw for MLB. We have the Broncos and the Pats. That was moved to this next coming Sunday. We've had already games being postponed and rescheduled. We had a game from Sunday that was played Tuesday, which was the Titans and who was that again? The other team, I forgot who they played.
The Bills.
Thank you. the Titans and the Bills, and that the game just wrapped up. And how much more are we going to see this? Where you mentioned it, Aileen, that they're going to be tested now the day of the game. What's to come?
I think it's inevitable. See, oh my God, you switched whatever you had to me. It came off the screen. But you know what it is? In English, like I speak 3 languages. If I say one word wrong in one of them languages, excuse me. But you cannot help but get COVID. How about that? Okay. I'll skip that word I couldn't say. You can't help but get COVID now, because in the season, especially with football, you're all up close. The only way I feel like MLB, they caught it. They rearranged the schedule. They made it work somehow. It's a little bit difficult more with football, since they're used to playing like only 1 game, maybe 2 a week. Not like baseball, where it's usually you play every day kind of thing. So it is going to be difficult, but I feel it's going to be something that you're going to have to do. You're going to have to postpone games because you're not in a bubble how NBA was. We never saw this with NBA because they never were exposed to the outside world. They might have gotten wings from a certain place every once in a while, but that was about it. Like, they were really held together in that bubble. With football, it's going to happen. It's going to happen, and we're going to have to see rescheduling and playing around. And now they're saying that also they're about to put some fines on the players and coaches if they don't see them wearing their mask on the sidelines or during the games.
So the NFLPA sent out an email this morning about the COVID monitoring testing. They said almost 38,000 tests were administered between October 4th and the 10th, and there was a total of 15 players and personnel that got the COVID virus. So, which means that I think it's gonna happen. If you cannot control the environment, you cannot control the situation with the players and the coaches and the other personnel as far as the bubble situation. I think it's too late to do a bubble situation right now, but maybe the NFL can revisit it, even though there was a report saying that the NFL is not considering a bubble for the playoffs. They really should consider a bubble for the playoffs, because that is their main moneymaker, the playoffs. Once you get to the playoffs, you cannot play around with this COVID situation. You do not want any of those playoff teams getting an outbreak during the playoffs when there's billions of dollars on the line, when you're fighting for a world championship. Heaven forbid that one of these teams, whoever wins the AFC or NFC championships, that team comes down with the COVID outbreak right before the Super Bowl. That would be the biggest disaster the NFL would not want to have happen. So it's hard to try to get these players and coaches and personnel into a bubble situation when they're so reliant on their families right now. And it's a different situation with the NFL because there's so much travel involved. Every week there are teams traveling to different cities. Like for instance, Miami had to go to San Francisco. The Cardinals had to go to New York. There's so much flying across country in all these different cities. It's hard to maintain a fluid and healthy and safe situation for these teams when there's so much travel and there's so many different factors involved to trying to keep these players and these personnel safe. It's so difficult.
So much travel, and yet they keep going back to their families. You can't control what their families do. You can't control who comes into their homes. And then yet again, there's people coming into the stadiums, and now they're saying they're going to increase that number of people that are allowed to come into the stadium. So it's not fully secluded. So if when NFL players get positive for COVID, is it really a surprise? Come on. Like, it's going to happen, so you better have a plan in place, because since you're not putting the necessary precautions, like you're letting people come in the stadium, you're letting them go back home, you're letting them do all this, you better have a plan when they get infected, because they're going to.
Right. Exactly. It's only a matter of time of when it's going to happen. Like what you mentioned, Ed, with the postseason and having a bubble. If we heard and saw how MLB, at the beginning, there was no mention of it, and I think they were just pushed enough to go ahead and implement a postseason bubble, which is the reason why they have it now. And believe that's going to be the same thing that's going to happen with NFL. If there's no talks of it, or there's, no mention of it now, it's in their best interest that they have a postseason bubble. It's more doable for the NFL. They don't have as many teams, and having, they can have more of a centralized location or locations to go ahead and host those postseason games, have a couple of cities. It's doable. Think of the safety of the players and the organization. Why not? And if the NBA, how successful they were with it, Yes, you can do it throughout the season, but postseason, it's going to be even more flying back and forth, more exposure. NFL is I think it's only going to be a matter of time before they're pushed enough, if they're not already, for a postseason bubble.
Because keep in mind also, it's getting colder. It's getting colder, and NFL plays out in the rain, snow, and slippery slope out. Not all of them are nice with the, roof and a dome like ours. No, they are out there. Mm-hmm. So imagine playing, in Chicago, in Wisconsin, with these freezing weathers, flu season, and COVID. Like, come on.
Although the Green Bay Packers would love to host a playoff game at Lambeau Field, wouldn't they? They'd be like, we're good.
I'm sure those
Joe, your Packers would love, Aaron Rodgers would love to play at Lambeau Field in December.
Definitely, especially after the season that they're having. My goodness, how can you not?
But how can Roger Goodell and his people not look at what the NHL did, not look at what Major League Soccer did, not look at what the NBA and what MLB is doing right now with their bubbles, and not say, maybe for the sake of our product, maybe for the sake of our players and our staff and all of our personnel, maybe we should implement a playoff bubble. It worked for all the other major sports. Why can't we do it? We are the gold standard as far as all the major sports are concerned. Everybody's looking to us to set the standard. So why not do a playoff bubble for us?
Mm-hmm. No, and we should have been taking notes from not only the Canadians, but hockey. Man, hockey knew how to do it. I don't know if you guys watched that video of how they cleaned and disinfected after every single team they came in. When did we ever hear of a breakout or about a postponement or about this and that? Never. Hockey knew how to do it. They kept their players clean, safe, and they executed the whole rest of the season. So if there was any notes to be taken from how to do, a sports season during COVID, it's from NHL. So we got to take hockey notes over here.
Yes, definitely take some notes from hockey, from NBA, from Canada.
NBA and hockey. Mm-hmm.
Even Europe, too, the way that they were able to come out and what they did. But every league is different. Every team, organization, etc. As much as we want, to see something, they're not always gonna mirror that, or everybody's gonna do it on their own way. But NFL set an example. How can you not, think of the healthy and safety of others? We can just hope for the best, and that we don't have, at least going into the postseason, as you mentioned, going into flu season, cold season. Being that it's getting colder, that we don't see very many more outbreaks and many others being affected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's just hope the league learned a lesson from this outbreak with the Tennessee Titans. 23 players and personnel coming positive with the COVID. That should be a wake-up call for the National Football League, that we don't want this to happen to any more of our football teams, which, like you said, Aileen, that's why there's probably going to be more and more testing, probably on the daily. They're going to probably have multiple tests a day, and like you said, they're going to do testing on game day, because they can't take a chance that this is going to happen again to a football franchise. They can't have it happen.
No, exactly. Let's get away a little bit of all the ugliness that we've talked about, and get a little into a little excitement. And I want to get a little into college football. This weekend of sports was just so emotional, and just a roller coaster of emotions. Good, bad, not great. I want to touch, I don't know if you saw the game, Aileen, from Saturday on the Texas Longhorns and Oklahoma Sooners. What a roller coaster of a game that was. Oh my gosh. Texas was losing third quarter. It seems like they were out of the game. All of a sudden, something came over them, and they were just hot. Going into the fourth quarter, they ended up tying that game against Oklahoma, and it went to quadruple overtime. It was just a battle of all battles, like a true duel. It was just amazing. Like, social media and Twitter, like, everybody was just going crazy. And, if you're, especially if you're a Texas fan, and just being a football fan, and being if you follow college football, how exciting that is as itself. But this game was just amazing, a roller coaster of a game. Nonetheless, Texas made a comeback in the third quarter, not good enough as they went into that fourth overtime. The game ended 45-53 for Oklahoma, but it was just I just thought I would mention it. Amazing to watch. Ed, I know you watched the game.
Yeah, that just the Red River Shootout. That's what Texas and Oklahoma do when they get together. I felt bad for Sam Ellinger.